Wait, it might have been recording the whole time. Oh, what does that button in the upper right-hand corner say?
Finish.
Oh, okay, so we're good. All right, so we are definitely live now, and so, yeah, amen. Last week, I kind of fooled the ladies. They said, they saw the camera and they said, oh, are we live? I said, that's a camera. So they assumed that meant it was off when it wasn't. I lied like a carpet in the living room. Anyway, so we are in Acts chapter 20, but this week I didn't, okay? This week you're really not on there. You're on that one instead. Acts chapter 20, and we're supposed to pick up in verse 13. It's really kind of hard to break into the situation that we find ourselves in verse 13. We'll start reading 13, we'll read down through 16, and then I'm going to back up and kind of review a little bit to help us catch up a little bit. Acts chapter 20, start reading in verse 13 and down to the end of verse 16. Let's read. And we went before to ship and sailed unto Assos, and there intending to take in Paul. For so had he appointed, minding himself to go afoot. And when he met with us at Assos, we took him in and came to Mytilene, I guess that's how it said. And we sailed thence and came the next day over against Chios, and the next day arrived at Samos and tarried at Trogyllium, and the next day we came to Miletus. For Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost. All right, so Paul's traveling. A lot of hard city names that he's going through. I'll try to give you a little bit of information on each one as we go through it. But we're picking up in verse 13 where he begins the travels. But I don't want you to miss what has just happened. Paul has just preached an incredibly long sermon. Does anybody remember how long he preached? He preached for 12 hours?
Midnight.
Well, he preached till midnight. Yeah, I don't think we know how many hours, but he preached till midnight. And a guy fell asleep and fell out of the window. What was his name? Eutychus, right? You guys still can't remember that even after I told you how to remember it? I can't believe this. Eutychus fell out of the window, and he fell from the third loft, and he was dead. And so Paul raises him from the dead. Then after he gets done raising him from the dead, they break bread, fellowship for a little while, and they keep on going. All right? Now, this is like an all-nighter for Paul. He's going all night with this thing. Why? Because he's leaving in the morning. Okay? Now, I want you to notice what it tells us in verse 13. At the end of verse 13, it said, minding himself to go afoot. I don't know about you, but if I know that I'm going to be doing something that is labor-intensive the next day, I like to get a good night's sleep. This is not in Paul's mind at all. He's going to walk. All right? So it starts out in verse 13. It says, and when we went before to ship. Well, who is we? Yeah, Luke and other people, right? About 7 other people, actually. And we went before to ship. So they caught a ship, and they sailed to Assos. All right? If you look at it, it's probably pronounced Assos. All right? Or we just say Assos in English. They go to Assos, and it says they're intending to take in Paul. So the idea there is that Paul is going to walk to Assos, and they're going to catch a ship, and they're going to go to Assos by ship. So that's the idea. Now, Assos was about 20 miles away from Troas, and you could take a ship from Troas to Assos. It would be basically like a ferry trip, but it wasn't really a ferry because back in those days they didn't have, persons didn't ride on ships like that. You caught a cargo ship or something of that nature, and maybe do a little work on the boat while you're traveling, maybe or pay some fare or something of that nature. So they would do that. In this case, the team catches a ship, but Paul decides to walk. All right, he has minded himself to go on foot. Now, when I saw that, I thought, well, why would Paul want to walk? You catch a ship, you just kind of sail 20 miles. It's not that far to sail. It's not like you're going to get really seasick or something. But he decides to walk. And the commentators will give you a whole variety of opinions. That's what I like about commentators. They've always got got opinions for what they're writing. But one of them said, well, maybe Paul just wanted a little bit of alone time. Okay, maybe he did. Maybe he did. I don't see it in the scriptures, but that's a possibility, I guess. Another commentator said that he wanted a time to privately meet with the Lord in prayer and devotion. Well, I'm sure he did want to meet with the Lord in prayer and devotion, but I don't see why he couldn't have just crawled down into the bottom of the ship and done the same thing. But that was another opinion. Another one was, well, because bad people are looking for Paul and his team, and so he traveled separately from them so that maybe they would stay safe. That was another opinion I read. Honestly, not sure about any of those. The next verse says, and we didn't read the next verse yet, but the next verse says that when they took him in, it means that they took him on board. So they continued in their travels from there. So apparently the ship route would have taken equal to or maybe more time than the walking route. So maybe Paul just decided he wanted to get there as quickly as he could and maybe do some work. I don't know. Maybe Paul was just wanting to have a foot race with a boat. And that too. There's lots of things that we could do. But in any case, what are we doing? All we're doing is supposing. We're making suppositions. We don't really know why. We just know that it is the case. So we can be sure that, Paul probably tried to witness to people on the way. While he's walking along, talking to people, I'm sure he did. Might have even been accompanied by other believers on the way, maybe from Troas who, went some distance with him. Obviously, they had a love for Paul. At least some of them did. I'm not so sure Eutychus cared much for his preaching, but I'm sure Eutychus loved him for raising him from the dead. So, I'm sure he had some good friends there. But we don't know. We're just not given the information, which means it's not important. Okay. So in verse 14 it says, and when he met with us at Assos, we took him in. So he had gone to Assos. Then the ship arrives from Troas, and then he gets on the ship, right there, okay? They took him in, meaning that they're there with the boat, and he gets on the boat with them. And then they came to Mytilene, or Mytilene, or does anybody know how to pronounce that, or anybody have a self-pronouncing Bible? Maybe you can help me out there. But anyway, this was the capital of, there was an island called Lesbos, and this was the capital of this island. It's a very pretty island. And the next verse that we read also mentions several stops that they make along the way. But ultimately, what are they doing? They're heading toward Miletus, and we'll get there in a moment. So in verse 15 it says, and we sailed thence, and came the next day over against Chios, and the next day we arrived at Samos, and tarried at Troas. And the next day we came to Miletus. So they're traveling, they're just kind of hopping around here. Another island south of Lesbos and Samos. There's another island south of Chios, and from Samos they traveled to Trogyllium, which was this was an interesting place. I looked this one up. It's like a rocky outcropping from the coast of Turkey, and so it's very close to Samos. And so they get there, and then the day following they go to Miletus, and from there to Miletus is about 30 miles. Okay. 48 kilometers, if you think better in kilometers. They went to Miletus, which was about 30 kilometers from Ephesus. Let me get it right here. So, Ephesus is about 30 miles away from where they're going to be. And that's important because later, what does Paul do? He gets the elders, church leaders from Ephesus to come to see him. He doesn't go to Ephesus. So he asked them to travel 30 miles. Now, I was trying to think, 30 miles from here. How far is Chunju from here in miles? Does anybody know? That's about that distance? That's 30 miles. I thought that was like 37 kilometers or so. Okay, so that's about 30 miles. So that's like, that would be like Mr. Do calling you at home and saying, listen, I know you don't have a car or a bicycle or a friend or anything like that, but can you walk all the way to Chunju to see me? I'd be like, brother Do, I love you, bro, but it's not happening in this life. To walk 30 miles. But they do this because Paul tells them to. And they walk. Anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself. So they've been hopping around. And so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing how the ship is just kind of stopping here and stopping there and stopping here and stopping there. Why do you suppose that is? Why didn't they just sail straight on in? Drop people off, pick people up, but the ship's primary mission is not people, remember? I'm sorry? Cargo, exactly. So most likely it's a cargo ship, and when you get on a cargo ship, just like in the military, you take a hop, you're just going where the plane's going. If it gets diverted in the air, well, you get diverted in the air, you know. So that's that. So they're hopping around, probably a cargo ship, and a lot of people traveled that way because there were no passenger ships. So if you wanted to go to some place and you knew the ships went there, you could go to the ship and you could say, "Do you have room?" "Yeah, we got room, but it's going to cost you $50, mister." So you pay them $50, you get on the ship, and you ride to Miletus, or whatever the case may be. Or, you have room? "Yeah, we got room, but we also need to cook." So maybe, "Can you cook?" "Yeah, I can cook a little bit." "Okay, so maybe you can go do that while we ride there." And so a lot of that kind of thing happened in the first century. So we get to verse 16, it says, "For Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus." He wasn't planning on stopping there because he would not spend the time in Asia. So that's his whole point. He doesn't want to stop in Asia. And the reason why is not because he didn't like Asia. It says, "For he hasted, if it were possible for him, to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost." So Paul's whole point is that he wants to get to Jerusalem by the day of Pentecost. He's got a time frame. And he knows what his time schedule is. He doesn't have time to take the time to walk all the way into Ephesus, 30 miles, come back out another 30 miles to catch another ship to keep on going. He knows he doesn't have the time. Now think about it. How long would it take you to walk 30 miles? If we started walking to Chunju right now, yeah, we would get there tonight, right? Late tonight, probably, we'd get there. And then we'd rest up or whatever and walk back tomorrow, right? No, sir, we would not. You don't walk 30 miles and get up in the morning and walk 30 more miles. I mean, even when they traveled in those days, they paced themselves. They didn't go, hog wild in this travel thing. Nobody ever did that, really. So you would walk a long distance, and then you would rest, and then you'd walk again. So he knows that if he walks to Ephesus, it's at least 3 days off his travel plans. 3 days gone. So I don't know how much time he has from here to get from here to Jerusalem, but apparently Paul feels like he doesn't have the time. He knows it's going to cost him 3 or 4 days. So he says, "No, we're not going to do that." And so he calls the leaders from Ephesus to meet him. In verse 17, from Miletus he sent to Ephesus and called the elders of the church. So the elders of Ephesus go to Miletus. And the purpose, Paul's purpose, and we learned this later on, Paul's purpose is that he's going to exhort them. He's going to give them some very crucial information, which, by the way, is very crucial to us. Important information for us, too. And he's going to encourage them a little bit and pray with them. And that's the purpose. And so it says that he called the elders of the church. Does the Haven have any elders? Sure is quiet out there. Does the Haven have any elders? Yes or no? Okay, my wife is pointing at Brother O. Brother O is an elder. Okay. So what kind of word, what kind of usage are we putting for the word elder there? Someone who is older. Okay. And then you pointed at me. So why'd you point at me?
You're an elder.
Because
You're a pastor.
Okay, yeah, so the pastor is an elder. What about, and you're pointing at Brother Dew. Is Brother Dew an elder? He kind of fits both categories. He's older and he is, yeah. He's a deacon, right? So does that fit the category of an elder? Okay, so we'll talk about the word elder here a little bit. The word elder is a good study. The Greek word is the word presbyteros. Does that sound familiar?
Presbyterian.
That's where the Presbyterians get their name, okay? And it's always translated elder. However, it is clear in the passage here that presbyteros, which is elder, and episkopos, does that sound familiar? That's where the Episcopalians get their name. Episkopos are the same people, all right? We know that because Paul speaks to the same group, the elders he called out, but to the same group in Acts 20 and verse 28, he calls them overseers, which is the word episkopos. So here's one thing you can know. You can know that an elder is an overseer, and it's also, by the way, translated as bishop, okay? So you've got elder, which is an overseer, which is a bishop, which is what we would call today, or what we say often today, as pastor. So I'm throwing out a lot of terms here, okay? So now let's look at each term a little bit more directly. Elder, 1 Timothy 5:19. Let's see, Dion, can you read that? 1 Timothy 5:19. It's in the New Testament. It's in 1 Timothy, which is
Timothy what?
chapter 5, verse 19.
1 Timothy 5,
19.
19. Against an elder receive not an accusation, but before two or three witnesses.
All right, so first we have the term elder, and it is basically someone who is in a leadership position in the church, okay? A spiritual leadership position, all right? You also have another term, which is the term bishop. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. And why don't you take that one, Brother Gary? 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1.
Timothy 3:1.
Yes.
This is a true saying. If a man desires the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work.
Okay, so in the world in which we live in today, when you hear, say, Bishop Boscuni made a trip to Rome, what do we immediately assume? He's Catholic. Because they use the word bishop a lot. But it's actually not a bad word. It's a biblical word. It's found in the Bible. It's the idea of one who is an overseer, and the emphasis tends to be more on administration than anything else. So if a man desires the office of a bishop, he desires a good work, and it's the same word as overseer. And then we have another word, Jeremiah 17:16. Who wants to read that? Jeremiah 17:16. Ion, why don't you read that?
As for me, I have not been open from being an actor to follow thee, neither have I desired the wonderful days thou knewest, and which came out of my lips for Christ's word.
Okay, so what word do we find there?
Good.
Pastor. Well, we find lips too. Thank you very much, Wise God. We find pastor, okay? And a pastor, by the way, the Hebrew word there is the word ra'ah. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Ra'ah. R-A-A-H in English. Or, huh? No? Okay, in Psalm 23:1, and this is kind of neat, Psalm 23:1, there are two words in Hebrew for the whole first verse. The whole first verse in Hebrew is Yehovah Ra'ah. So Ra'ah there is shepherd in Psalm 23:1. The Lord is my shepherd is actually two words in Hebrew, okay? So Ra'ah means shepherd. So that means that pastor means shepherd. Okay, so you got elder, you got pastor, you got, what else have we covered there? Bishop. One more word. 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 2. Can you turn there, brother? Brother Wayne, can you read that? What did I give you? What doesn't matter. 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 2.
We sent Timotheus, our brother and minister of God, and our fellow laborers in the gospel of Christ, to establish you and to comfort you concerning your faith.
Okay, so there's the word minister that we're looking at. But in Greek, it's the word diakonos. The diakonos is an interesting word. It's usually we hear the word diakonos, and that makes you think of what? Deacon. It's where we get the word deacon. So the word simply means one who serves. That's what minister is. But here in 1 Thessalonians 3:2, it says, "And sent Timotheus, our brother and minister of God." So Timotheus, or Timothy, was a minister of God, or a diakonos. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6 says this, "If thou put the brethren in remembrance of these things, that thou shalt be a good minister of Jesus Christ." And so the word diakonos can really be applied to anybody. We're all supposed to minister. So, but when we speak of churches, we don't use the word deacon for everybody, obviously. Brother Dew is a deacon, but Dion is not, right? So there's that recognition. But the bottom line is this: when it comes to leadership in the church, often we use an umbrella term, and we just say the elders of the church. You see that in James chapter 5, where somebody is sick, it says, "Let him call for the elders of the church, and they'll come and pray over them and anoint them with oil." And so some denominations use these various terms to kind of make different levels of offices within the polity of the church, but I don't see different levels. Some people do, and I don't fight with them over it, whatever. As far as I can see, however, there's only two. There's the pastor and there's the deacon. We have Sunday school teachers, though. Who's a Sunday school teacher? You're a Sunday school teacher. Who else? You've been a Sunday school teacher. Who else? You're pointing at, the lady that's trying to hide her face back there. You're a Sunday school teacher. So, is there a biblical office of Sunday school teacher? No, but is it unbiblical? No. Sometimes the church can create certain positions to help with the function of the church, but as far as a God-ordained office, so far as I can see, there's only the pastor and the deacon. So, Paul calls, getting back to the elders here, Paul calls for the elders, right? Some people point to the fact that it's Ephesus and there's a plural word for elders. So, they see that as support for plurality of elders in a single church. I don't see this expressly taught in the Bible. I can see great wisdom in having a group of men who are, they're making spiritual decisions together. I can see great wisdom in that, but I don't see that as being a mandate from the Lord. And in any case, I've seen churches where there was a group of people that led the church, a group of elders that led the church. And you know what I figured out? If you hang around long enough, you know what you figure out? There is the alpha male. There is the guy, that one guy. So you could have elders, let's say that all of us are the elders here, and we get together and we start discussing buying new communion cups or something, At some point, it becomes clear who is actually leading anyway. And typically, it is the pastor. So there's always that one in the group. And in my experience, I'm not saying it's always that way, but in my experience, it's usually the pastor anyway. So a lot of times, what do? We get wrapped around the axle on terms and this term and that term. What does this mean? What does that mean? And whether or not we can do this or should do this or shouldn't do that and whatever. And a lot of times when it comes right down to practicality, it doesn't even matter. Because we end up doing the same thing anyway, even though we talk about it differently. So let's move on to verse 18. "And when they were come to him, he said unto them, Ye know, from the first day that I came into Asia, after what manner have I been with you at all seasons." So we'll do verse 18 and then we'll close today. But he mentions Asia. Okay, so define Asia today. Man, we're living here. Y'all people don't even know where you live. What's Asia? All right, let's do it the easy way. Is Hong Kong part of Asia?
Yes.
Is China part of Asia? Is Japan part of Asia? Is Korea part of Asia? Where am I at? What?
Russia?
Okay, good. Is Russia part of Asia? They are? Is Turkey part of Asia? Oh, now there's an interesting one because a lot of Asians would say yes. A lot of Westerners would go, but if you have the Asian Games, Turkey's in the Asian Games. Yeah? So are they Asian or not? Oh, they're border. They're border.
Okay, so are the Russians in the Asian Games?
No. Yeah, no Russians.
Same goes for, okay, what about, will Australia take part?
Absolutely not. That's not Asia. That's Australia.
Although they're seen as Australasia, right? Okay, so, I mean.
All right, so here's where I'm going with that. We can't even hardly define Asia today. But in the first century, they knew what Asia was. All right? The Asia of the Scriptures is what? What? Am I missing something? What's going on? It's not important? Are we still defining Asia? Have we defined Asia, or we're okay? What do you think? Is Turkey Asia or not? Well, she's saying no.
That's a border of Europe.
He's saying it's a border. See, even Asians don't know what Asia is today. That's my point. But in the first century, they didn't have that problem. They knew what Asia was because that was defined for them by the Roman Empire. So the Asia of the Scriptures is not the same as the Asia today. That's the first thing I want to point out. Nor was it the same as Asia Minor, which is more accurate to what we would refer to as Asia today. Asia Minor is more Asia today than... Anyway, let's not go there. The Asia of the first century is more the area of Turkey. It wasn't South Korea at all. I don't even know if they thought about South Korea in the first century, at least, in Israel. I don't know. But didn't consider that at all. So, at the time of Paul, Asia was a province of the Roman Empire, which means it had borders drawn. You got a Roman map, you would know for a fact exactly what Asia was. There was no discussion about whether or not they should be in the Asian Games or not, okay? Everybody knew, but Ephesus was the capital, all right? Big, important place. Remember the last time we talked about Ephesus? What was going on there? I'll give you a hint. Great is Diana. Remember? The goddess of the Ephesians, right? So that's what was going on there last time. So maybe that's another good reason why Paul didn't want to exactly slip back into Ephesus, right? People didn't like him so much there. So it's a province there, the Roman Empire. Ephesus is the capital. They travel out to meet him. But Paul pointed out that to them, his ministry had been an open book. He says this. He says, you know from the first day that I came into Asia, after what manner I've been with you at all seasons. So his ministry was an open book. He mentions all seasons. And it's very possible in a very literal sense because he was there for over 2 years. So he was definitely there in all seasons, if you want to look at it that way. But I don't think that's what he meant. I think what he meant was, in all different kinds of situations, you saw how we ministered. So Paul could have been speaking of the times of hardship that they had there, the times of ease, the times of open door. Neither view actually brings any damage to the context, but I really think that Paul's not talking about summer, winter, spring, and fall. I think he's talking about, the situations he found himself in. So we will stop here today and come back to verse 19 next week. I think that would be a wise thing to do. So any questions or comments on what we've covered? Yes? Anyone? No. I guess you guys want to go home. I don't know why. It's not like we've been here all day. Or most of us ain't. Right? Okay, then. Let's go ahead and pray and we'll be dismissed. And let's see. Sir? Yeah, we do have a meeting afterwards. You guys got figures for me? Okay, good. Are you a member of the church? Yeah. Then the answer is? Me. Yes. Okay, so Brother Kim, close us in prayer. All right, I want to go right into the meeting because I got information to give you. So, if you'd like to, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, let's do that real quick, and then come back, and then we can get this knocked out.
Russia is part of Asia, by the way.
You look it up?
I did.
How far is Vladivostok from here?
What?
How far is Vladivostok from here?
Vladivostok from here,
Not that far. It's north of here.
probably about 400 miles, maybe.
So how far is Asia from here?
Usually when you think of Asia, though, you're thinking of Asian-looking people.
But
When
the
you think
Asian
of Russia,
continent
you
is
don't think of
huge.
Asia. Huh?
The Russian continent, or the Asian continent is huge.
Right. Which means that we shouldn't be thinking of Asia as a people group. We should be thinking of Asia as a landmass, a geographical location.
So is Russia is part of the game?
Yeah. Oh, no. I don't know about the game, but it's definitely part of the Asian continent.
So it's considered Asia?
Yes. It's actually split between Asia and Europe.
Really? So Mexico would be here.
Depends on where it
Mexico
falls.
is pretty much wasted.
Yeah. It's actually divided.
Yeah.
I don't want to see. Brother O, Wolf said that that is his, that's his private number, and he doesn't want to give it to you.
Think about yeah. Don't.
Tell him what?
I'm sitting in the car.
He said he's turning his phone off anyway.
It's not horrible. It is. Usually it's
Stew? What do you mean?
I just talked to him.
Where is that going? The wolf pack. I don't know what that
I
means.
wasn't quite, I didn't think it would.
Who are those going?
I gave it to him.
probably
To who?
it's not considered.
To the wolf? Oh, he's not the wolf pack. He is the wolf. Okay.
Okay, is everybody back? Everybody back? Keep going home? You're allowed, you're not a church member, so you're allowed to skip that.
Okay.
What's the,
We're all
It's okay, it's done.
oh, we're still online. Did somebody turn that off?
He knows how to turn off.
We're still recording. I gotta get somebody on this job.